I want to start a video series basically called the College Collection. And what this is going to be is a series of stories and personal anecdotes from my experiences being a student in higher ed and also working in higher ed for about 10 years. Now, one student composite that I want to focus on first is the low buy-in / hasn't bought into college type student. Now, this type of student in general presents as one who's generally disinterested in college, and this may be for a variety of reasons. They might not have a strong sense of connection to that institution. They might be getting kind of pressured or pushed into going to college, let's say. They may not have found their spot in college. They may not know specifically what they're using college to achieve later in life. Or in some cases, they just haven't felt that sense of achievement yet. For a lot of these students, they may be dissatisfied with the idea of going to college right after high school because it kind of feels like they're just going from one hoop to another. And that is understandable in a lot of cases. It's been my observation with a lot of these students, especially when they first start as freshmen, is that they're so beaten down by education. They're so disenfranchised with their learning or their learning approach, and they hear about how college is so much harder and they have so much more free time, and there's so many new unique challenges to college. It can be overwhelming for a lot of them. Now, there are some suggestions for these types of students going in as kind of low buy-in, as it were. One, it's important to understand that attending college is not a requirement as far as like the state is concerned. Like, it's not compulsory like high school. So theoretically, you don't have to go to college, especially right after high school. You don't have to do that. For parents, it's also important to understand and to know your child that if they are not buying into the idea of college, perhaps it's not the right time. That doesn't mean that they'll never attend college, but it just may be the wrong time in their lives right now. And I understand the anxiety of like, well, if they don't go to college, what are they going to do? And I'm worried about their trajectory in life and they need to do something productive. Absolutely. But that might be where they get a job and they start earning an income and start contributing to bills, let's say, and taking on real life responsibilities. And you never know, in a couple of years or maybe a decade, whatever the case might be, they might get that spark and find the calling that they're looking for and realize, okay, college would help me, or at least an associate's degree would help me. And then they begin to take on that responsibility later in life. That's fantastic as far as I'm concerned, as long as there's a plan and accountability in place. And as always, your goals can change and they fluctuate with time. It's happened to me, it happens to a lot of people. I think sometimes for the low buy-in students, they may not feel that sense of connection right now. It might be the wrong place. For some, it might be other factors like, do I have to be a resident student? Should I be commuting? And what kind of expenses or setbacks may come with those experiences? For some people, especially people with disabilities, they might be concerned about perception or stigma because there still exists this stigma in the K through 12 grades, let's say, about being in special education. And I will tell you, as a college student and as an adult, no one really cares in a good way. No one really cares if you were in special ed in high school. That doesn't really factor into things anymore. If you attend, let's say, or you're considering an institution with an academic support program, that's a great resource, but they don't tell everybody that you're in that program. That's confidential information. So really, no one will really know unless you say something in that regard. But if you're concerned about stigma, just understand that that really doesn't exist on the same level in higher education anymore. Everyone's kind of there to do their thing, just as you would be in that case. Now, there's another student composite that I've also seen fairly often in higher ed. It's the high-achieving, high-anxious student. Now, this student comes in usually already wound pretty tight when it comes to the academic and overall rigors of college, with good reason, because they appreciate the level that it took for them to get to that institution, and they may be, like, let's say, in an honors program, or they may be taking on extracurricular activities as well, in relation, let's say, to a scholarship. So they already feel that sense of pressure to perform, and it's from my experience, that primarily these students need a lot of support, not necessarily academically, but holistically, because there's a lot of pressure, internalized or externally, on them. And that can wear a person down and fatigue them outside of class, let's say. So they may be turning in stellar work and they might be meeting all their deadlines and doing really well in their courses, but internally and personally, they might be kind of unraveling or falling apart because it just feels like there's so much pressure on them to do well. So, parents, I understand the desire and the push for your son or daughter, for your child to do well. I think that's admirable. But I think it's also important to know them and to recognize their relative strengths and weaknesses, not as a point of judgment, but more from a perspective of care and concern for your child's well-being. And to recognize signs, let's say, if they're struggling beyond what is reasonable, let's say, for the stresses of college. So if they have hobbies, or if they volunteer their time, or they have a job, whatever it is that they kind of do, their social circles, whatever they kind of do outside of their classes, let's say, that makes them happy or feel fulfilled, make sure that they're keeping up with those things, that they're keeping up conversation with you and other people about what they're experiencing, and that they're not just internalizing all of this stress and anxiety, because eventually it's almost like they're going to pop in that sense. Resources in the institution are there, and they're there to support. So academic resources, mental health resources, campuses have nurses or medical staff on hand to help everybody on campus in their time of need. So recognizing these resources, and more importantly, utilizing these resources when they're needed, is paramount. For you, the student, the high-achieving, potentially highly anxious student, I want you to recognize that you are a person and that sometimes people can break down, but that we also face a lot of stress in our lives. And a lot of it is good stress. It's performance anxiety. You want to do well, and that's fantastic. But if you get stuck in this perfectionistic loop of always trying to do the best and always people-pleasing or standing out from everybody else as being the best, just understand that there are costs to all actions and behaviors. So it's important for you to recognize the signs of when things are kind of working the opposite way for you, and to seek out those support structures either on the campus, within your family, friends, privately, whoever kind of supports you, and maintain those lines of communication so that you don't feel isolated, so that you don't begin to internalize and tighten up even further about your experiences within this institution. But it's extremely important for you as a person to understand that you are not alone, you do have support structures, and that you are not a burden for seeking support. I think that's part of the reason why some high-achieving students struggle and internalize that struggle, is that they don't want to be perceived as being weak or incompetent, and you are not. But you also have to understand that you won't be able to achieve those potential future successes if you burn out, if you flame out in the process of getting to that place. So recognize those signs when they present themselves and address them and get the support you need. So that is the beginning of the College Collection video series. I look forward to putting out more in the future. I hope you stick with me. If you give me a like and a thumbs up, that lets me know I'm doing some pretty good work. Feel free to share with anyone that you think might benefit from this, and I look forward to seeing you later.